Hi, my name's Haley Huey. I'm director of the Entrepreneurship Clinic at NC State, and we lead the Andrews Launch Accelerator program each summer. Today, I'm joined by Trevor Ferree, the CEO of TSV Analytics, to learn a little bit more about his venture and his story.
Thanks for inviting me, Haley.
Yeah, Trevor, it's great to see you. I can't wait to talk about everything that TSV has been up to. I remember so clearly the day that we met. You came in for a pitch, and then we had a chance just to talk about your plans for TSV. To figure out the fit for the accelerator. Can you just share with us a little bit about TSV as it exists today?
Yeah, so very much remember that pitch. Feels like forever ago. But TSV Analytics is a predictive social media analytics tool and content automation device. So we help businesses understand what their audiences are focused on and then create content that is trendy and relevant to get them more clicks and views of their website.
Yeah. So that's a really great summary. And I think I was excited by what you pitched as your venture, but then really grew to appreciate what you guys are doing and how different that is from other social media management tools. So how is TSV different than other content provider tools that exist?
Yeah, so when we talk about social media management and other tools like that, a lot of that really comes back to publishing the content that you're putting together, having your social media manager, typically an intern or someone you kind of just bring on to understand your audience and do all these things, when that's really not the most effective way to do that. So we help brands kind of really focus in on that listening aspect of social media analytics. So we look at specific niche topics or themes that they really care about, and then we do social analytics. We can see what's trending within their audience and then really help them turn that into the actual content, which is the most recent version of TSV Analytics. We actually introduced this AI content generator. So we can actually put together the TikTok script ideas, the voiceover, as well as putting together a tweet or really whatever the brand needs. And it's all focused on your audience rather than having to go with your gut and guess what you should be posting about.
Yeah, I found that so fascinating, not just writing a trend or a wave today, but looking into the future of what the brand needs to be working on. And I was so fascinated by what you guys did with even putting together, as you mentioned, the TikTok script. So literally even suggestions for what people should be saying, where they should be standing. And why does that help a brand?
Yeah, so it really comes down to, I think, understanding your audience again. So if you're listening to what your audience cares about, you're going to be putting out better content. So it really comes back to that listening component, focusing there, and then turning that into that trendy content. Because with social media, as I'm sure you know, the trends constantly come and go, and what you should have posted last week, it's too late now, and you really need to be looking ahead. And that really is one of the biggest differentiators for TSV, is that predictive, and we like to say prescriptive element, is really letting you know and telling you, here's what you should be posting next week or in 2 weeks, and giving you an upper hand on the next thing that's about to come, and not playing defense on social media and constantly reacting to what's happening.
Yeah. One of the things that I found so interesting about your product too is, the different areas in which it can help the organization too. This is not a tool for just the chief marketing officer or just the intern. It's everyone in between. And it just feels like, gosh, the savings of time would be so valuable.
Yeah, that's really what we focus on as well, is the savings of time. And I think the best example of that is even for TSV Analytics. When we're trying to post on social media, I constantly am trying to figure out, what do people want to hear about when it comes to social media analytics, social media marketing? And what I'm able to do is actually go into our own TSV Analytics tool and look ahead, and I'm able to do our own social media rather than having to bring someone onto the team. And it just is almost the perfect case study where a co-founder of a tech startup is able to run the social media without having a bunch of training, all using the TSV platform.
Yeah. I love that. I think it makes it so approachable. And and it sounds like you work with everyone from startup clients. You mentioned startup founders as a potential user. So what types of brands do you work with or could you work with?
Yeah, I think this is something we're still trying to figure out, obviously looking for product market fit and all of that. And we've really gone after brands that were a few people to thousands of people that are focused on their team, and small social media teams that have the product marketing manager or a social media manager intern on the team, to full teams that are putting together content, and they have someone devoted to each single platform to be able to create that content. So I think that's something we're very much still trying to figure out, but I think it really does come down to I think those founders, people who want to be on social media know they need to be on social media, but they don't have the time, or it seems like I'd have to put in all this effort and work to be able to post. But instead of doing that, just be able to use TSV analytics, see what people are talking about, tailored for you, and then just turn that into content in seconds rather than hours. Right?
Yeah, makes total sense. So Trevor, you've shared a lot about your product and what TSV is doing now. And I think that's so exciting. But if we can, I want to go back in time a little bit because you and your co-founder actually met as students at NC State. So Can you tell us about Aiden and how you guys met and how you came up with the concept for TSV?
Yes, so that is a very long story and didn't start with TSV Analytics. It actually started before Aiden and I were officially students at NC State. Okay. We met at freshman orientation. We both went into the exploratory studies program at NC State. I thought I had wanted to do engineering. Aiden was figuring out what he wanted to do, and we both decided to go undecided, and we both ended up living in Tucker Hall. We became great friends really before co-founders, would hang out all the time. And then I started getting involved with undergraduate research at NC State with Professor Rand in the Poole College of Management, working on a bunch of social media analytics projects, really just looking at what can we do with all this information and data. And I was so early on, I was literally doing like data entry. Does this location match up to the one that we're predicting, and doing yes, no for these thousands of records. And started out very early on just trying to understand all of the data. And then we got pulled into this one project for the American Coatings Association, which includes like Sherwin-Williams, Valspar, DuPont, Dow, all these massive paint and chemical companies. And I realized that we were using very advanced analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence techniques with natural language processing. And I thought it would be great if I had someone who could kind of come on, can really implement this, work with the team, and really get it to production. And I asked Aiden if he'd be willing to do it. And he was extremely excited and was ready to join the team, work on the undergraduate research. And I think that was really the thing that brought us together the most, is that undergraduate research in Poole College. I think getting that basically real world experience of these projects with these international companies coming to NC State, asking us to build this tool to predict and prevent the next BPA baby bottle craze that
Right.
they would have a ton of backlash behind. And they're coming to juniors at NC State, and we're able to put together this process that eventually becomes TSV Analytics. And that's really where it all began. And Aiden and I, starting from freshman orientation to now working on a company together, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm sure you didn't know sharing dinner at Fountain Dining Hall where this would all go.
Yes.
That's really exciting. I think it really struck me in interviewing you all for the accelerator, just how well you all communicate and work together. And, you know, there's a huge difference in really strong teams and how supportive they are of the venture and of each other. And you guys have that in spades. Have there been tough times for you and Aiden? How'd you navigate it?
Have there been tough times? That's a great question. Without a doubt, right? Like, that's the whole thing of entrepreneurship, I think, in my mind, is the constant waves of optimism versus pessimism, and being able to traverse that. And one day it's like, how are we going to sell this to become a multi-million-dollar company? And can we even get this one person to buy it, right? When you're starting from the very beginning, it's traversing all of that. And I think it's been very interesting creating the whole company during COVID, because we really ultimately worked on that project with the American Coatings Association until I think mid 2020, when the COVID pandemic was just really getting started. And
what a time.
Yeah, it seems like forever ago, but it goes so fast and so slow at the same time. But we've been trying to figure out how to do everything over Zoom, and obviously going back and forth to Raleigh from wherever we are to be able to participate in different accelerator programs. So I think there's always something new, and I think it really does come back to the fact that we were friends before founders together, and we have that relationship where we can talk to each other, figure it out. We know how each other communicate, and it's really just being open and honest and traversing it that way.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, you know, friends before founders is the way that a lot of companies start. You know, people realize they have shared interests. That doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes it's hard to fire the best friend, or, you know, sometimes even hold them accountable. Hey, you know, I need this by this date.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be in lockstep with not only with values, but also with goals. And, and that seems to be clear from the TSV team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it does come back to the fact that we both are fully devoted to this one thing that we're working on, and although we do need to hold each other accountable, I think it's that internal motivation where we're working on this thing. Let's make it work. I need to make it work for my co-founder. So
Right.
I think it's just managing expectations, figuring out how to communicate. Those are really the big things.
Yeah. So you said we're really, we're solely focused on doing this one thing. And when I met you, you had also graduated from NC State. You had gone on to a fantastic job. And so you were working in industry while also doing this as more of a side hustle. Talk to me about how that changed and how you made the decision to make TSV your sole priority.
Yes. So big decision, taking the leap. It was a long build up to figure out when was the best time to leave, like how to traverse that whole situation, because it was a very insane time going back to COVID, and TSV wouldn't exist without COVID actually happening, because I had signed a job agreement to move to New York City to work with IBM's marketing analytics team, and COVID hits. They say we can work from home. I end up working from home. I'm able to basically have so much extra free time where I can work off the hours and I can focus on TSV and just see, okay, is there anything we can really do with this? And then Aiden finishes up school. He can start working a ton on the product side, the technical side of things. And it's really just that whole balance between how can I balance this IBM job as a marketing data scientist versus TSV co-founder trying to figure out how to run a business. And I think there is a lot of advantage to working in the industry, especially in marketing data science, which is super related to TSV social media analytics. And I think beyond even the industry expertise that I gained from kind of how do we analyze this data, how do we make decisions with data, it's really how do you work in a company, right? And bringing those basic foundations for, okay, we should have a check-in every day, and how often should we meet and kind of discuss our goals and make sure we're aligned. So I think there's a huge advantage just to getting a few years of experience. And I think I ended up working at IBM for nearly 2 years as a marketing data scientist after my internship that I was there as well. So I think it was super beneficial just to kind of ground myself and understand, like, how does this whole company thing really work, even from a small scale in a small team at IBM, which has thousands of employees, to now the TSV team, which has a few employees, and that's everyone, right?
Yeah. I think you make a good point, because sometimes when I work with students, I think they think that it's a linear track. And if you go work for a large company, or you're not starting a company when you're ready to cross the stage for graduation, then that venture won't be possible for you, or you've made your decision and now you live with it. That's one piece of advice that we try to share with those aspiring entrepreneurs is certainly there's no time like the present to immerse yourself in the world, network, learn, put yourself in a position to learn from other companies. And you did a lot of that. Yeah.
And I think another thing that you mentioned is like taking the leap, right? Of leaving a fantastic job, like you said, at IBM to focus on TSV analytics. And I mean, I have to say that I was debating that decision for probably a year before I actually made the leap. And I think it comes back to the fact that getting into the Andrews Launch Accelerator was a huge validation point for TSV, and the progress we made during the program, we could basically say, okay, this is a viable business. We're getting some traction. NC State is backing us through this accelerator program. It feels like there is something here. Let's truly commit, take the leap. We'll figure it out as we go. So I think it's just really the timing aspect is the biggest thing there.
Trevor, I think I was as nervous as you were when you made the decision, but I think there's no looking back. Obviously, it was the right choice, and you guys have seen a ton of growth after making that. So we have such a wonderful network of folks who either graduated from NC State or they moved here from somewhere else, and they're so impressed with the talent pipeline that we have at the university. It's been wonderful to, be able to vet this incredible network of supporters that want nothing more than for TSV to have wild success in all of the other ventures, but also offer some career advice for students who are doing things like, navigating their first offer out of school, or figuring out if it's time to make a leap and do something different. And I think you also made a great point. There's no one mentor that can solve all the problems. So you had different mentors that were, technical and product focused, and then others that were, how do we scale this concept and how do we take our next steps?
Yeah. And I think even going before even our entrepreneurs in residence is we actually have 2 advisors that we've officially brought onto the TSV team. One is more strategic, John, and one is more technical, and Drew. And being able to go to them with specific questions where, okay, our server is down. What do we do about this? Please help us. Versus like, okay, we're starting to introduce this more consumer focused pricing model where people can come to the site and just purchase it. Like, how do we figure out even how to start pricing this, right? So having certain people who you can go to with specific questions is one of the biggest things I would recommend for any new founder, is just getting super tailored advice from experts in a certain thing that you're working on.
Yeah. I think you're right too. One of the most powerful things a mentor can do is share their mistakes and lessons learned. But so much in creating something from scratch is throwing spaghetti at the wall. Yes. So you need someone alongside you that can help you gut check those things or be a sounding board. And I saw you guys take major leaps over the course of the accelerator program. And, you know, a lot of that was due to the hard work that you were putting in and, you know, having such a clear picture of where you wanted to grow, but also the input from these mentors is so valuable.
Yeah, I think I like to say that entrepreneurship is the opposite of academics, where in a classroom you get the lesson and then the test, but entrepreneurship, you get the test and then the lesson. So you have to kind of just figure out, how does this even work? Like you said, throwing spaghetti at the wall. It's constant experimentation. Like, is this going to work? I don't really know. We should look at the data when it's done and figure out if it did, but it's really just backing everything up, seeing what happens, and then going with the best option, basically.
Go test your hypothesis.
Exactly.
That's what it is. And then regroup and figure out how you might like to approach it in the future. Okay, that's really good advice. Thanks so much. You just shared with us, every day feels a little bit like you're just going to test this hypothesis and see how it's going. And there have probably been a million moments like that for you. But can you tell us about a moment when, I don't know, it was either a breakthrough or it felt like things were falling into place, and what was going on for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest moment by far was when we got the first email that confirmed that we had gotten a payment from one of our clients for using the TSV analytics platform. I think that is just such a huge validation that someone is willing to pay some amount of money for this thing. I think regardless of the amount, I think it's that stickiness. They're willing to commit to you building this thing. And that really is just like the one light bulb that it's like, okay, we got this one person to pay us. They're getting value out of this. We can definitely find the next 5-10 people that are willing to pay this, start to scale this up a little bit. Maybe this might actually work. And I think that was one of the biggest contributions to me leaving IBM and being able to commit to TSV full time, is just knowing that, okay, there's really people out there that are getting value out of this platform. We can get some revenue out of this. We can take this to the next step. Let's really figure out how to make that work. And that's when we really went all in and tried to figure it out, and still are.
I think that's right. Sometimes when people are wanting to start a new business or they're envisioning that process, they're already thinking in the thousands of customers or 10,000s. And without question, having your eyes on the prize with what ultimate growth and scalability looks like. But that first sale can be so intimidating. Sometimes that feels like your Everest. So I do think that's a natural moment if somebody's really given you a significant portion of time or money. Yeah. Those are the drivers.
And I think especially for TSV Analytics specifically, is we are very much a business to business sales process type of organization, where we're dealing with, like I said before, companies that can have thousands of people that have a ton of red tape to be able to get to someone who will actually pay for this thing. And it can be very daunting to think, okay, how do we get to 1,000 customers? I think really just focusing on, okay, if we had 10 people that are willing to pay for this, who are those 10 people? And really being focused there, rather than saying, oh, there's 10,000 social media managers on the East Coast. Like, let's focus on those rather than, okay, let's really target and figure out who will pay for this.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you're developing, you know, proof points, raving fans, whatever you want to call it. But they're also teaching you a lot about your product at the same time. What are the gaps that exist? Have you gotten any feedback that surprised you about TSV so far?
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much surprising feedback. Just going into, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that we learned from the accelerator, is to focus on what are users getting the most value from when they come onto the TSV platform, and going to talk to them, asking them questions like, what do you find the most useful? And we'll go into these calls having released a new part of the TSV dashboard that we think they're going to be raving about, and this is the newest thing, and they're just saying that, oh, this one thing that you've had is just the best thing, and we can use this every single day to figure out how we should kind of create our social media content. And we're go back to the call and we're like, didn't really expect them to say that that was the biggest thing. And it's just like, you have to really get in the head of what the people that you're trying to sell to, what is the job that they want to get done, and how can your product help them get to that kind of completed product faster, quicker, cheaper, really whatever it might be, and just focusing on that. So that just is a huge thing for us, is focusing on the feedback from the customers.
Yeah, I think you guys are so good at that as well. Not only asking really good questions, but then being able to look at the insights and then apply it to your business. And I do think it's the same idea of just becoming an expert in the pain point. You not only want to get in their head, but you want to like get in their day. Where are you losing your time, or where are you missing the mark? Because if you can fully understand where they're hurting, then you can design a solution to best treat it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you and the other accelerator programs that we participated in really honed in on, is the customer discovery. Yeah. Like going into these calls, going out to talk to 200 social media managers about how they actually create content. How do you figure out what trends are going on?
Right.
When do you post on social media? What do you care about? Like getting down to the root cause of why they're doing the job through these very unbiased questions is really the only way you're going to get a product that is solving those jobs to be done for them.
Yeah. Again, sometimes in the beginning, so many things need to be done. It can feel like a time sink. But you have done such a great job, and I'm a firm believer that that's why you've seen so much growth in your product and interest. I know you were just at Consumer Electronics in Las Vegas, but your company's changing and growing, and there's interest and awareness that you exist, which is the number one marketing challenge that you need to solve for. Yes. But you probably also, the work is scaling quickly, and you're a small team. I'm aware that you worked with some NC State students in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like? Who'd you work with? What were they able to do for you? Yes,
the NC State teams through the clinic here were great. They were super helpful. And I think one of the projects that we had them work on is those near 200 calls with social media managers that we have recorded and the transcripts for, having them go through all of those and actually putting data behind, here are the top 10 pain points that social media managers indicated when they were talking to you, like very purposeful projects that are leading back to business results for us, where we can then go and take all of those messages, turn them into marketing messages, put it back out to those social media managers. And I think another thing is teaching the students, what is a startup life really like? One of the projects that we worked on over the summer with the students was they had to go out and do some customer discovery on their own. And we had helped them figure out, okay, let's put together some messaging, figure out how to get the meetings scheduled. And I think they quickly realized that people aren't just going to stop immediately in their day and give you the time to come and talk to you. Right. It's not that simple for getting on people's calendars, and just the challenges with every single step of starting a business, because it's not easy, right? But I think just having that support group, people to go and ask questions to, like yourself, I still ask you questions all the time, right? So it's just having that network, like how should we even do this is the biggest thing. Yeah, it is interesting to watch somebody like you that also can easily just sit on either side of the table, mentee or mentor, depends on the day and the scenario. I think we all feel that way at different times, but I do think you all being giving of your time to help expose students to startup life. You're also teaching them some of the soft skills that will accelerate them in their careers, right? They're gaining critical customer insights. Apply that to any industry, any position. You know, they may go work for SAS, they may go work for a major healthcare system, but a lot of these core lessons, you know, they're learning with you at TSV, and now you're part of their network. And I think that's so valuable. Yeah, I totally agree. I think the startup work is very different than the work you would do at SAS, but just having that mentality of, oh, can I do this? Let me just go and see if I can do it, rather than typical corporate life where it could be weeks to get something done. It's really just taking that initiative and just going and seeing if it works, I think is the biggest thing. And I hope that meeting with all the students, working with them, kind of take some of that and apply it no matter where they go, right? Yeah. I think that's great advice. You know, certainly you've learned all the lessons yourself and continue to learn them and continue to pay it forward. I'd really also like to ask you, Trevor, one of the biggest questions, and take this any direction you want to, but you know, you did have the original concept for TSV while a student, and I know that changed over time and how to apply it. What advice would you have for others who want to start their own concept? What would you tell them? I think the biggest thing, and this is probably a byproduct of how I got started on TSV, is to not really search for your next project too hard. I think if you're running into a problem and you see that there's this thing I keep running into and it's causing me pain, I wonder if other people have a similar pain. Going out, doing some basic customer discovery, unbiased customer discovery, hopefully talking to people, understanding, oh, do they have a similar product? Is there a market out there? So that might not be the best advice, that you should not specifically look for it, but I think it does really come down to the fact that if it's a problem that people have and you're the one experiencing it, you're going to have a much better understanding of what the solution might look like.
Yeah.
In my mind.
I think that's so right. The advice is really good. There are personal problems and there are problems at scale. Yes. So one of the best things that you can do really quickly is prove or disprove that hypothesis, right? Just because I have a problem toasting my bread to just the right toastiness, right? Does not mean that everyone in the world does. But what you did really wisely, and for every story that we get to talk about on Startup Stories, there may be 10 other that were able to disprove it really quickly. And that's good. Saving you time and money to get to the next right opportunity, I think, is important. So, being willing to take chances.
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned is another huge thing, is the fail fast mentality. If you can find out this idea and you want to start the startup around it, figuring out if it's viable or not as quickly as possible should be the number one thing, and not sinking your time, your money, your effort into this project that may not end up working out, and it may not end up working out either way, but just realizing that there is some validation there is really the number one step in my mind.
Okay, great. Last question for you, Trevor.
Yes.
What's next for TSV? Where do you want to be in, let's say, 5 years? What are you guys going to do?
Ooh, within 5 years.
Yeah. Or the next year.
Yeah.
Just what's next?
Yeah. So I think next step for TSV, and this is a very long-term next step, is to go after an acquisition of TSV Analytics. I think the social media management space has a ton of players, and the acquisition market is very hot, and these tools kind of integrating with one another and adding kind of plug-and-play integrations. So I think long-term for both Ada and myself is going after that acquisition timeline, whatever that may be. But I think really the number one step to get to that acquisition is getting a product that people really love in our target market. So getting social media managers that come back to the TSV tool every single day, figuring out their analytics, figuring out what's trending, creating their content, and optimizing their whole social media process, and then showing that adding all of these data-driven decisions is really what makes a difference in this super creative field that people haven't really driven into the data so much. So I think that's really long-term goal, but short-term, we're super focused on our product and making sure that people love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you have such clarity on the pain points that exist. And I think that's all you can do, is be heads down and create such a craveable product. But it also sounds like you guys have a great long-term vision for TSV. Yeah. I just thank you for spending some time and chatting about what you guys are working on. We look forward to following along and seeing where you go.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for everything during the accelerator, from everything from NC State. It's been great, and I'm sure we'll talk again very soon.
Of course.